Welcome back to the Graham Stephan Show, and we gotta have a serious conversation about the dangers of homeownership. I know that's a very unpopular topic to talk about, but right now is one of the most treacherous times to buy a house. And that's what brings me to this video here. It's just titled, Let's Talk About Being House Poor. So with that said, I'm gonna link to her video down below in the description because she makes some really great nuanced points that everybody needs to hear, because this could end up saving you tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next few decades. If that sounds unbelievable, just give the video a like, subscribe, watch it. So thanks so much, and also big thank you to Built for sponsoring this video, but more on that later.
I bought a house when I was 26 and fell immediately into poverty.
That's right, we have a whole playroom for the kid. But I'm eating pot noodle for lunch because that's what we can afford.
You know what, I know this is gonna be really controversial and unpopular for me to say, but I'm gonna say it. I think a lot of people have been lied to these days about the dreams of homeownership. They have been told, you need to buy a home. Buying a home is a great investment. Buying a home is going to make you money. But these days, with prices and interest rates the way they are, it is really, really difficult to come out ahead owning a house versus the cost of renting. There are so many nuances here that we have to break down and discuss. Because if you make a mistake when it comes to this, it could easily cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, without exaggeration. So with that out of the way, let's continue.
House poor seems like an oxymoron. Like, how could you be poor if you literally own a house? Home ownership is this weird thing, because on one hand, it's seen as a clear path for the middle class to become financially secure. On the other hand, home ownership has been incredibly romanticized. It has been framed as the American dream.
Yeah, back then though, land was cheap. Properties were really selling for like 2 to 4 times your annual income. A person was able to make it on a single income, having kids, with a stay-at-home partner. I mean, there's so many advantages back then. I mean, now we have the internet, the ability to make millions of dollars from anywhere in the world, remote. I mean, listen, just the fact that we have, I could click a video on YouTube and watch somebody else discussing investments of property, like that didn't exist 70 years ago. So obviously different time. But back then, homeownership is completely different than it is today. And homeownership is even completely different than it was 10 years ago. There's so many changes that we got to talk about and break down. But yeah, what used to be, I think, fantastic is slowly starting to become a money pit.
Because we have romanticized the heck out of home ownership in our culture, we end up with a world where people are throwing themselves into crazy debt, overwhelming expenses, and hurting themselves financially in order to buy a house.
I love the Caleb Hammer reference. I don't think he has a lot of homeowners on his channel. Caleb Hammer, his audience really comes in, their big thing is credit card debt and overspending. You could simplify a lot of those videos with just like really poor communication, poor financial skills because they weren't taught, or it's easier just to avoid. But yeah, the people who actually like scrounge up, save, invest long-term, and then dump it into a house at a 7.5% interest rate, it's gonna be a lot tougher. That's what I think. And again, it's unpopular to say, and people are gonna be like, but Graham, you own real estate. Yeah, properties I bought like 6 years ago at a 2.8% interest rate fixed for 30 years at a low property tax basis. That's the only way to make it work these days.
By the way, if you are new here, I'm Kara and I make videos on the intersection of money, media, and culture. If that sounds like your cup of tea, be sure to subscribe and check out my video on the golden handcuffs trap, which I think you'll really like. If you like this video, go watch it after you watch this one.
Yeah, go and subscribe to her. I'm gonna link to her channel down below in the description. I really like supporting other creators. I think she does great breakdowns. She's really good at talking about nuance, which is something that a lot of creators miss. A lot of people out there just want to be like, this is good, that is bad, this is really bad, let's talk about the bad. I think overall she's pretty balanced, and I think that goes a long way. Because not everything is just going to be black and white. Like even when it comes to home ownership, there are places and situations where home ownership, I feel, is the better choice. There's also situations where renting is the better choice. I don't think it's one or the other. It's just right now it tends to lean a bit better towards renting. But that's it. We'll continue.
Something that I really enjoy doing is looking at gorgeous and often pricey Zillow homes. Literally, I will just bop around from city to city on the app and look at the pretty pictures.
I can't even begin to get you started. How much time I spend on Zillow. Without exaggeration, I probably spend 30 minutes a day scrolling listings across a few states. I'll check Zillow and be like, oh, this listing came up, okay. And I'll start looking through photos and be like, that's a bit overpriced. I don't like that. These finishes are awful. Or sometimes I'll see listings and I'm like, oh man, I love this house. I would do anything to live there, but I don't like that location. It's like right next to the freeway. It's kind of bad. So anyway, Zillow is my guilty pleasure. I love it.
Besides the obvious of we all secretly love to look at these, right? The reason is because, crazily enough, I realized after doing the math that some of these beautiful homes I look at on Zillow, I could technically afford.
Look, whether you decide to buy or rent, the key is just really maximizing every dollar. Like sure, homeowners build equity when they pay down their mortgage, but what about renters? Most people have this idea that they get nothing in return every month when they pay their landlord, and that used to be true up until recently. A few years ago, Built Rewards was created to let people earn points on their rent, which could then be redeemed towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment, which is why they've been kind enough to be able to sponsor this video. After all, we could already earn points on groceries, travel, and practically anything else you spend money on with a major credit card, so it makes sense that you could also earn points on your rent, which is one of America's largest recurring expenses for the average person. Not to mention, there's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll get to earn valuable points in your rent and your everyday spending, all of which could be redeemed throughout over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world, or towards unique experiences that only Built members could access. They've even been consistently ranked one of the highest value point currencies by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Honestly, the way I see it, there's no reason not to get points on something that you're already going to be spending money on anyway. So start earning points right now by using the link down below in the description to sign up, or the QR code on the screen, and make sure to use my link so they know I sent you. Plus, in addition to everything I just mentioned, they can also help you build your credit when you allow Built to automatically report your rental payments to all 3 credit bureaus. Again, the link is down below in the description, or you could use the QR code on the screen to begin earning points and redeem them for rewards. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the video.
I'm meaning that I could technically scrape together enough for a down payment and I have enough monthly income to cover the zestimated monthly costs. And this is where a lot of people stop the home buying thought process.
It's so funny. I do the exact same thing too. I'm like, if I sold everything I have and I'm left over with X amount after tax, could I buy this house? Could I just throw it all in like one property, like oceanfront, and just ball it up there? Could I? No. But you know what? And then I think to myself, well, if I did that, how much would I really need to survive after that? Like, as long as I could afford the property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, could I live off of like that? Is like, and then figure out like groceries and health insurance and all the other expenses that come along with life? Like, how could I make that property work? Never actually do it, but my gosh, it's so much fun.
Knowing that you could technically buy a house, whether it's a dream house or just any house, frankly, can easily suck us into fantasies that are fueled by cultural norms and romanticization, lessons past generations have drilled into us, or desires for flexing to those around us.
I agree completely. I hate to draw the comparison against this, but it's kind of true. People were lied to when it comes to going to college. I think, at least my generation, being a millennial, you're just told when you grow up, oh, you gotta graduate high school so you could go to college so that you could get a good job. And then that way, you're never gonna be poor. But then what people realize is, oh, wait a second, I graduated college, I'm $50,000 in student loan debt at an 8% interest rate. I can't find a job. The jobs that are hiring are paying $35,000 a year, and they want all these expectations that I don't have. Really what it came down to, college is a big waste. I mean, just go to community college. If you don't know what you want to do, don't take on the debt. Go to a good, affordable school if that's what it takes, or just get into the trades. There's so many options out there without college. I think homeownership is in some degree going to be treated the same way. Like, I see listings now where people are losing money based on what they bought the property at 2 years ago because interest rates are so much higher. Again, I know probably going to get some hate on this, but I say this objectively. It doesn't matter to me if you buy or rent a house. I just want to see you save money. That's my most important thing. I want to see you make a great financial choice, and then 20 years from now, you come back to me, he's like,
hey Graham, you know what, I saw your video that you did, and you did this reaction on your second channel that some people don't even know you have, but I watch the channel, and I like and subscribe because, I want to support your channel, and me making that decision based on that video saved me a few $100,000, and I'm so glad, and thanks Graham, thumbs up.
That's what would make me happy. That's it. So anyway, we'll continue.
Any kind of issue, whether it's a lost job, a water pipe that you have to fix, popped tires on your car. If you are house poor, those issues could have massive financial consequences because you are living in a far more vulnerable place day to day.
Yes, 100%. Now here's the thing, a lender will give you more money to buy the house than you should be buying, okay? So what a lender looks for is what's called your debt to income ratio. And they want to see that your debts, all of your expenses, don't exceed 44% of your gross income. So if you make $10,000 a month, $4,400 of that can go towards all of your debts. That includes student loans, credit cards, auto loans, and whatever's left over could go to your house. Now, if you don't have any other debts, all $4,400 a month could technically go to your house. Never do that. No, don't do that. Because like she said, you have one slip up, you are screwed. One roof needs replacing, one leak, one insurance claim. You lose your job, your income goes down, your spouse loses their job. There's a million things that could come up, and then all of a sudden, you're stuck with this big payment. Now, if you want to get out of the payment, you need to sell. Well, guess what? You're taking about a 6 to 7% loss on the selling price because of commissions, closing costs, escrow fees, random repairs that you'll have to make. So like right off the bat, you need to sell your home for 7% more just to break even. That's the bare minimum to break even. But guess what? Let's say you bought 2 years ago and now payments are much higher for the new buyer. They might not offer you the exact same price that you paid. They might offer you $100,000 less. So now you're taking a $100,000 loss on your equity, which hopefully you put 20% down, and then you're taking another 7% loss on top of that just to get out of the payments. So it's a tough situation. The other difficulty is that let's just say you don't want to sell, you want to rent it instead. Great choice. What if rents aren't enough to cover your mortgage? I look at today's mortgage and I say rents are never going to cover that. It's just you're going to get 30% less than what you are paying. Renting does not make any sense. So in addition to being underwater, you also can't rent the property. This is so common. This happens all the time. So many properties I'm seeing are taking huge hits, and they can't rent it out at their overhead. They're taking a loss every month just to keep the house. It's so common. You don't even realize it. I'm rambling on here. I'm very passionate about this topic. All of that's so true. Listen, I have a property. I had to spend $8,000 recently on a brand new air conditioning unit because the last one just kind of went out. I mean, it was 20 years old, fine. I had to replace the entire washer dryer, another $1,000 gone. This is all within the last year. Termite repair, got a $9,000 quote for that. The chimney had a minor, just some water intrusion because the chimney top is like not properly secure. So a little water got in there. And then some of the paint's bubbling. That could have been bad. Some of the paint's, but it's like thousands. I'm probably in like 15 grand in repairs. Just normal repairs in a year. As a renter, you would pay zero. You pay nothing of that. It is what it is. The landlord takes the hit on that.
In 1986, a Steven Spielberg comedy starring Tom Hanks came out called The Money Pit, and the entire plot revolved around a young couple buying their dream home only to discover the whole thing is falling apart. The house quickly becomes a money pit, thus the title.
Looks like they bought a home from D.R. Horton. That was a joke. I'm just kidding. Don't take that seriously. I'm sure they're great.
When you buy a house, you normally move into a place that is bigger than wherever you are renting, and with more space means buying more furniture.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that the biggest thing when it comes to buying a house like that, because I've been through it with the whole furniture thing, it's very expensive. Don't be afraid just to get like cheaper furniture. I really don't notice any major quality differences between like restoration hardware and like some higher end Wayfair stuff. Except Wayfair is going to be 1/10 of the cost. And the other thing I'd highly recommend, be slow about furnishing it. It's okay to move into a house and all you have is a bed frame and a nightstand and a couch, and then just slowly over time. You don't need to furnish it all in one day. Take your time, do it slowly. It'll happen naturally over time. That's my recommendation.
Here's my hot take. A house is not always an investment, specifically if you are living in that house. Because when a house is your primary residence, I think that you should only ever think about it as a place to live, not as a financial vehicle. Sure, it might appreciate in value over time, but that appreciation is only theoretical until you sell the house. And even then, you still need to live somewhere. If you want to live in that same area, you're going to have to buy in the same housing market that has gone up over time.
Yeah, this is completely true. I mean, here's the thing. Historically, real estate has always gone up. It's tough in the short term because we've never had a market where renting is so much cheaper than buying. And just because a house has always gone up in the past doesn't mean it always will in the future. Now, I tend to think if you plan to buy something, raise a family in there, live there for 30 plus years, and this is your perfect home that you could comfortably afford with less than a third of your income after you've already saved up a 20% down payment, by all means, then I think buying could be a smart choice. Then I think it makes less of a difference if your house goes up in value or what happens in the short term. Then I think I'd be so happy for you in that case. I'm all for it. But if that's not you, and you want to just live there for the next 5-6 years, maybe you don't know where you're going to be after that, and renting is significantly cheaper, rent. Invest the difference somewhere else instead. I bet you get a higher return in the stock market than the housing market over 30 years. It is the way it is. That's what I think. We can look back on this and see, maybe I'm wrong. So do your own research on that. That's my belief. And when I see the difference between how cheap renting is right now compared to buying a house, man, I'm all for renting.
Since the mid-20th century, the US has primarily relied on home ownership as a strategy for middle-income households to build wealth. For households in the 3 middle-income quintiles, home equity is the single largest financial asset, representing between 50 and 70% of net wealth.
You know why it's so good? Because people can't save money. When they buy a house, they lock themselves into a mortgage, and the mortgage becomes a forced savings account because a portion of that mortgage goes towards interest, a portion of it pays down the balance of the loan, and then over 30 years, all of a sudden you've saved up the house because the mortgage forces you to put money away. I hate to say it, for most people, if they didn't have a mortgage forcing them to save money every month, they wouldn't save the money. They would blow it. They would spend it. And so that's why home ownership has been such a good investment. Combine that with the fact that homes have generally trended upwards. Now you have a combined savings account that's worth more money than you paid. That's why historically home ownership has been the easiest path to wealth for so many people.
Say that your parents did put their 20% down payment money into the stock market instead of a Bay Area house in the 90s. From the mid-90s to now, the S&P 500 has grown at around 10% a year on average, meaning that their $60,000 down payment would have grown into over $1 million.
I agree completely. But here's the thing, okay? Here's the flip side to that. If you're disciplined, if you're so strict about your budget that you actually invest the difference, that'll make you more money. But if you're not strict about your budget, realistically, most people won't do that, and that's the danger.
Having a house, it can be fun, but being house poor is certainly not.
I'm sure a lot of what I say is going to be a bit unpopular, and people always say, but
Graham, you're biased. You own the real estate. You're a landlord. And of course you want people to rent.
guys, it's like I have zero vacancy. It makes zero difference to me if you rent or buy. Zero. When I'm renting out a property, people have no idea. It's a property that I have. And I have zero vacancy. I've had zero vacancy for years. I just don't get turnover. Like all the places, they're rented. So it doesn't financially benefit me if you rent at all. It also doesn't financially benefit me if you buy. I'm not working as a real estate agent. Even when I did, I never got clients from YouTube. Ever. I made zero money. I kept those completely separate between my real estate business and YouTube. Nothing. So there is no financial incentive one way or another for me to have an opinion.
Rent a house because then I'll make money as landlord.
Nothing. When it comes to money, I just look at math and I say, okay, which math saves me more money and gives me a better deal? Do I buy or rent? The better deal for a lot of people these days is rent. In 2019, I was telling so many people to buy a house constantly. In 2020, I constantly said, refinance your mortgage. Mortgages are at record lows. Save money. Lock it in. I had so many conversations with people on YouTube, on the podcast, yelling at them. I'm like, lock in your interest rate. It's not going any lower. So anyway, that's what I think of this. I'm going to link to her channel down below in the description. Seriously, think this through. If you're looking to move in the next few years, just do the math. Let the math speak for itself. And then also know yourself. If you're not disciplined, perhaps buying is better because it's going to force you to save. Buying something that you can afford. But you know what? If you are and you want to build wealth and you're good at saving money, which I have a feeling you are, then perhaps renting is better.